Alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is Isa Abu Isa in another episode of The Night Shift.
Naam. Alhamdulillah, this is the continuation of the reading of the words of Sheikh Badr al-Utaybi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, and his treatise of Maqalat, which is known as Have Mercy Upon Salafiyyah. And this is another episode, as Brother Isa said, of The Night Shift. Alhamdulillah, the Sheikh begins by saying, secondly, and we already talked about this before, he said, secondly, classifying people based upon suspicion and doubt, as well as ignorance regarding what necessitates a person to be ascribed to particular groups. Classifying people based upon suspicion and doubt. We know that the Prophet ﷺ said, Iyaka wa zan, be aware of suspicion.
No.
And he mentioned that the worst type of suspicion, or the worst form of lying, is what? Suspicion. Nah. So also, the Sheikh said, not everybody who speaks with politics wears the iqal and cufflinks becomes an ikhwani. Allahu Akbar. So here's the Sheikh is talking, describing about the iqal. For those who know, the iqal is that little black ring that goes around the top of the gutra. You normally see it sometimes when you go in the Gulf or you go to Saudi Arabia. A lot of the people with tribes, they wear it a lot.
You see the black ring around the head. Yeah.
So he said not everyone who wears the iqal, because the ikhwani, they are known that they like to wear them. Nor cufflinks, those who wear suits, for example, wear cufflinks onto the thobes. They are not ikhwani. And this is something very important, especially in our time. If you think about the progress as far as the community cannot progress because certain barriers that we have. One of those barriers is whenever we see someone willing to deal with like the city council, or willing to deal with the city in any way or any form of fashion, so that the Muslim can have a better position within that community or in that society, we see that people start saying, well, this is ikhwani tendencies, this is ikhwani this or that, and not really understanding that there are room that's available for you to deal with in these areas. The Sheikh continues, said, not everybody who goes towards zuhd and da'wah becomes a tablighi. Another thing that, another misconception is people judging by appearance is looking at someone who want to practice abstinence, who want to refrain from partaking, in the luxuries, the luxurious things in life.
Yep.
He want to practice zuhd. Or he want to give da'wah. He want to goes out and invite others to the way of Allah. This does not necessitate that this person is a tablighi.
No.
Doesn't necessitate that he's a tablighi. Not everybody who makes takfir of the tawaghit and the heretics become a khariji. Okay? Now, tawaghit is the plural form of the word taghut. Right? Not everybody who makes takfir. Takfir is to declare someone to be a disbeliever.
Not a Muslim, yeah.
Right? Declare someone to be a disbeliever. And the heretics becomes a khariji. Meaning not everyone who calls out against these individuals, such as a form of taghut, is like the Pope.
Exactly.
Some people don't agree that the Pope is actually a form of taghut, but be a form of taghut, inshallah ta'ala. They're the best opinion. Like other individuals who rule by other than what Allah Jalla wa Ala,
like for example, say if you got a general person. Like for example, I remember when Sheikh Muqsim, he was asked the question, are the people who are protesting in the Maidan in the middle of Cairo at the time, protesting and burning buildings, are they Khawarij? The Sheikh said the hukm of the Khawarij is not on them. These are general people following behind their imams.
No.
So just because they're out there protesting and they're out there saying they want the government to fall, doesn't necessarily say that they are Khawarij. Automatically.
Automatically, no. And not everybody who praises a person of innovation. Now pay attention to this wording here. Not everybody who praises a person of innovation due to his affair being hidden from him is ascribed to being a hizb, like they say and think. So for example, someone you might know, you might don't know that this person is, for example, is upon bid'ah, or is a mubtadi', bi'ayniyah. However, your praising of that person, because you probably don't have the absence of knowledge, does not necessitate someone who does have that knowledge shouldn't go around and say, look, you see, here's this guy, he's rubbing shoulders with the people of bid'ah, he's praising them and so forth and so on. Have mercy upon Salafiyyah.
So he says, you should know what necessitates criticism and dispraise. So, firstly, in this particular situation, does it necessitate criticism and dispraise? That's the first thing you got to establish. You got to establish, does now what I see him doing, does it necessitate me to criticize him, or just because I don't know what's from the Sunnah? Just because he may be working with a different issue of fiqh that I don't know about, or I may know about and don't agree with, does that now necessitate dispraise and criticism?
More so like what happened now. Just because one person followed the opinion of one particular sheikh or shuyukh or scholars, does that necessitate that now, you know, I have to criticize this person because he doesn't take this opinion?
Exactly.
We agree on this, we don't agree on that. This is very muhim, it's important.
And when a person is ascribed to a particular group, which the scholars have all agreed on its misguidance, and exit from the Sunnah, and know when a person is not ascribed to such a group, do not oppress people. So,
other words, not a group that you have made up yourself. Well, he don't take the opinion of so and so. He don't align himself with the people of the Sunnah.
He's mumayyir.
He's mumayyir.
He's watering down the dawah.
These coins, these terms that you didn't coin, or these people that you didn't group by aligning them with people. But we're talking about groups that are known, like the Sufis, like the Khawarij, for example. You know what I mean?
The Ahbash.
The Ahbash.
The Qadari, the Shia.
The different Jama'at, the different organizations that's out there that's upon deviation. That the ulama, you know, they agreed and actually explained and have brought evidence.
Which is permissible to warn against those groups because they already been ijma' to warn against them.
Exactly. Not an individual coming up and saying, you know what, I want to now, because so-and-so have some discrepancies or things that we don't agree with that particular person, I want to now make them a group. So now we're going to say this person who follow him, this is their group. You know, and this person who follow him, this is their group.
And they call them Hajawriyun, Maghribiyun, and then they give all these different names to them, Mayyiyun, and they make up different groups, and then they put a hukam on the whole group of people. Then they declare them innovators without a scholar, without a judge, without no ahkam, nothing.
Well, nothing, inshallah. Tell you.
Yes, have mercy upon Salafiyyah. You should know the virtue of the scholars. Even if they slip up and make mistakes, leave the criticism of the scholars to the scholars. And do not open the door to ignorant ones. And do not accustom them.
Let's stop there real quick. Please stop there. If you brothers and sisters are not aware of our beloved Bilal, stop saying beloved. I got to get that out of my vocabulary. Our brother Bilal Davis, Abdul Hakeem Bilal Davis, he has started a series of audios. First, he started off writing the articles. Then he started
the audio,
the audio, which is called Doubts Around the Dawah. But I believe like on the 8th or 9th one is when, and I might be wrong, the 8th or 9th one is when he started talking about Sheikh Musil al-Abbas.
No.
The actual encounter that they have with one another. He went to translate the words of the Sheikh, and he said that the Sheikh words was amazing, ajib. Now, I want you to pay attention to these words here. Look what the Sheikh is saying here. He said, leave the criticism of the scholars to the scholars. Bilal Davis, he said to us that Sheikh Rabi' has informed him, you know, that he can speak about this issue in terms of it. He wasn't criticizing. He put it out there that he wasn't criticizing. But just think about it. Immediately, when that clip came out, people started putting up posters like, yeah, the Sheikh, you know, the Sheikh is amazing. Like, the Sheikh got something against Maktab Salafiyyah, or the Sheikh was biased, or the Sheikh was, you know, as ajib, it was strange. What did that lead to? Instead of you just leaving the affairs, instead of having Sheikh Rabi' himself talk to Sheikh Musil al-Abbas, which would have been better, had any one of your shuyukh talk to him, which would have been better, you went in yourself and start to interpret his words and, you know, say, well, he did this, we asked him that, he did this. Like this stuff right there, this is definitely dangerous. And we're not saying that a scholar cannot be advised from a student. We're not saying that a scholar cannot be, you know, engaged, but there's a certain way and there's a certain protocol how that should be done. But we know definitely treading on dangerous water.
Definitely. It says, and do not accustom them to daring to speak against scholars. By Allah, they will not show mercy to you and to the other scholars if you end up opposing them. And if you see that, if you oppose them in anything, even if a scholar's not safe from them, if he opposes them in anything, they go into saying slide comments about the Sheikh, this about the Sheikh. But if someone says anything about one of their scholars, right, then they try to find excuses for the refutation, like what Sheikh Ubaid, what Sheikh Fawzan said about leaving them, with Sheikh Lohaydan said, and like that. The statement was brought to them about Sheikh Obeid, and they actually spoke. Not Sheikh Fawzan just didn't speak of the statement. He said, "Leave the Sheikh totally." So, but they'll make excuses for that, and but if it's about you or any other scholar doesn't agree with them, then they post it. They send it out there and they say, "Look, this scholar's been warned against. You got to drop him. You got to leave him. These double standards have to stop."
And at any rate, if anyone who knows Arabic and can listen to the actual audio of Sheikh Fawzan, some people might don't hold the view that our brother Isa hold. Isa understood that the Sheikh was saying "Utrukhu" after mentioning after asking who made the statement, and it said Sheikh Obeid, and then he understood that he was talking about leave Sheikh Obeid alone. However, there are other brothers who know Arabic as well, and they heard the actual audio and they listened to it, and they believe that the Sheikh wasn't talking about Sheikh Obeid per se himself. He was talking about the error that he made to leave that off. At any rate, this also shows us that there is no scholar alive, except that he might have mistakes that he might make, but there are other scholars who might deem that mistake might not be worthy to be followed, and that and so forth. So we're not telling anyone right now, stay away from Sheikh Obeid.
No, we're not saying. The point we're making is that let scholars deal with scholars.
Exactly. And also the point in that is to understand that not every scholar, even though they puff up these certain scholars, not every scholar just don't have no kalam against them. There's other scholars that might have issues with other scholars.
And this has already occurred to the extent that some of these savages, rabbles, dare to speak against Sheikh bin Baz, Uthaymeen, Albani, Al-Madkhali, and other than them. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Say to the ignorant ones, be silent. From the goodness of a person, Islam is to leave off what does not concern him.
Okay, I don't want to move on. I want to go back. For many of you don't know that a lot of people, when they speak ill, and Sheikh Salih Suhaimi mentioned this in his book, people say the things about Sheikh bin Baz and Sheikh Uthaymeen and Sheikh Abdul Muhsin. They say that these are these scholars who don't really know about minhaj. They're not well versed in minhaj. Like, you don't ask them about the rijal, and this is a form of disrespect. Also, they say they don't know these affairs, but ask these other other scholars because they know about the affairs, and that's like an insult. And it's an insult because, number one, if you look about it, in Saudi Arabia, and mostly in not just in Saudi Arabia, in all of the other Muslim countries that have a Dar al-Iftah, they have like a committee, a group of scholars who give fatwa and so forth and so on, right? And they have scholars who are on high calibers. Those who are senior scholars.
Every Muslim country has this.
Right? It's senior scholars and so forth. You wouldn't find someone who isn't on their caliber making statements about that scholar like that. If he did, it would be disrespect, no matter whoever he is. It still would be a form of disrespect to say, he don't know about minhaj.
Exactly. It would be. I mean, just like when you had to speak with Abu Khadija about the legend and things like that. I mean, speaking out and saying this, what he said about the legend and things like that, that they erred and they need to rectify what they said. And I mean, so to speak out, to say this type of stuff about the legend is not just a government organization. In it is scholars that were some of the most major scholars of our time that was given fatwa, and that's we need to watch our tongue.
And what does knowledge does? Knowledge gives you that adl, that balance right there. So even though you might don't agree with a scholar position, like for example Abu Hanifa, he's one of the 4 imams, right, who had really little resources of authentic hadith around him. So hadith might didn't reach him. But he would take strange positions. Those positions that come found, they're strange. They actually went against what was actually authentically sound. At any rate, knowledge dictates that you don't disrespect him because he's still an imam. And you still believe that he didn't just come out of his pocket. He actually worked with either some fiqh principles or so forth of what he had of knowledge to try to ascertain the correct position. So for someone to come along and say, Imam Abu Hanifa, he got all of these strange statements, he's a jahil. This would be disrespectful, or he's not from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This is another form of disrespect because we consider him to be from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And this is something that you have to understand with brothers. When you have a little bit of knowledge, it doesn't give you the right to speak ill of any scholar, whether you agree with the scholar or not. Respect the position that the scholar is bringing. And this is something that I don't see a lot of people doing because they don't understand the wajhul istidlal. They don't understand the point of reference of what the scholar is using, what evidence is he using, how did he arrive at that particular thing. Even if it's weak, you still should respect it. Tayyib, he said, say to the ignorant person, be silent. From the goodness of a person, Islam is to leave off what does not concern him. Basically, this is based off the hadith that we know that the Prophet ﷺ said what? Da'a ma yuribaka ila ma yuribak. Da'a ma yuribaka ila ma yuribak. The Prophet ﷺ said, leave off that which does not concern you.
Because, you know, the thing is,
also, yeah, go ahead.
What going on between scholars, how does that concern you on Broad and Gerard? I mean, I'm just bringing it home.
No.
How does that concern you at Broad and Susquehanna? We're going to work 9 to 5, taking care of your family. Because two scholars are arguing, or two scholars are differing. You got people who bring it home to us, and they busy us with it, and we don't know the basic fundamental principles of the wudu, the shurut salat, the tawheed, and you busy us with the differences of opinion between students of knowledge and scholars, and you busy us with it instead of just leaving it off because it really doesn't even concern you in the end.
No. So the hadith is min husn Islam wa mar'i tarakahu ma la ya'ni. That's the hadith of Abu Hurairah. And this is what the hadith he's alluding to. From the goodness of a person of Islam is to leave out that which does not concern him. The other hadith is the hadith that is mentioned by the Prophet's grandson, Hassan, where he said, leave that which make you doubt for that which does not make you doubt. Say to the ignorant person, be silent, because the person you are speaking about is a scholar. We ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to forgive him, but he is better than you. He teaches goodness to the people. Many people have benefit from him. And let's just be realistic here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of emotions that's going on back and forth. There's a lot of that stuff going on. We see it. And, you know, I can't escape it. Many people can't escape it when you're talking about these issues. But we still gotta remember that the flesh of the scholars are sacred. And we still gotta remember we cannot allow ourselves to speak ill of the scholars. Yeah. Regardless how you might feel whether the scholar is incorrect. We still have to understand what? We cannot speak ill of the scholars. So, and to understand that, we have to make sure that we're being fair. And there's nothing wrong with one of your brothers or another sister seeing someone that does that, advising that person. Yo, exactly. I wouldn't use those words. I wouldn't speak ill of the scholar. And this is something that we see nowadays. You can't advise nobody. Nobody want to be advised. Nobody want to take advice. You can't say, yo, brother, you can't do this. If you advise them, now you're going soft. If you advise them, now you're like, okay, but these people, they did this, they did that, they did that. That don't make us soft, and that don't make us forget about what they did. It don't make, you know what I mean? Allah Jalla wa Ala tells us in the Quran, He mentioned in the ayat that do not allow that which someone transgress against you
make you unjust.
Make you unjust.
No.
All right? And this ayat in the Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah Jalla wa Ala is telling us what? Just because someone do ill towards you, don't mean you what?
Do ill towards them.
You do too ill to them. Nor do you transgress beyond bounds because they did ill.
The Islamic principles stay the same whether we mad or not. They stay the same. They don't change.
No. So he goes on. He said,
say to the ignorant person, be silent. Begin with yourself. Remove ignorance from yourself. And take from where the scholars have taken from. And this is very important. The issue is that while we're not started, be silent, be quiet, stop calling people mayyit, stop calling people deviants, stop saying this, and deal with your own backyard and rectify your own heart and your own affairs, and remove ignorance from yourself. The problem is that we've been busied with affairs that are over our head, that don't concern us. So time have went by and we look around, our Islam hasn't moved. We're in quicksand.
And nor have we begin with ourselves. When have we begin with ourselves? We started to think about learning for ourselves, really studying for ourselves. You have to be selfish when it comes to practicing this deen and learning this deen. Starting with yourself, not following somebody. Don't be a follower. If you're going to follow anybody, follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Exactly.
And follow the kitab. In order to do that, you're going to have to arm yourself with knowledge.
Exactly, yep.
You have to busy yourself with knowledge.
And you should learn a lesson from how scholars fell into errors and mistakes. If this is the case with them, then what do you think will happen to the people of ignorance and those who are misguided?
Very, very, very important right here. Those who are perceived and those who are, in our eyes, are learned, and those who have acquired skills and understanding of this deen, if they still can make a mistake and an error with knowledge, how much more so a person who doesn't possess knowledge? You understand? So if you know you haven't studied anything within this deen, why are you the first, at the headlines talking about this and talking about that? Or,
if somebody like Sheikh Uthaymeen and bin Baz, who was Sheikh al-Islam of our time, can make a mistake, and scholars can disagree with them and bring proof that the Sheikh made a mistake here or made a mistake there, if that's the case, then what about these guys that we have in front of us on minbars or teaching in the masjid who are nowhere near the knowledge of in the pinky toe of Sheikh bin Baz? If Sheikh bin Baz can fall into error, then how about me, Abu Zayd, Hot Somali or any of these guys that's there. I mean, if that can happen to a scholar.
There should be a rule of thumb that every speaker that speaks, every person that speaks, when he opens his or her mouth, know that you're going to make a mistake. You're going to make way more mistakes than you might make that which is correct.
Exactly.
Unless you're reading the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, unless you're reading authentic ahadith and you're not ad-libbing, you're not adding anything to it. But when you speak, believe, I don't care how well spoken you are, I don't care how well versed you are, you're going to make a mistake.
It's impossible for your opinions to be 100% foolproof.
Exactly. He said, discipline them. Encourage them to love people, to show mercy to the creation, and to be focused on guidance of the people. Have mercy upon Salafiyyah. You need to know what the people expect from you, especially outside of this country. Now, because the author who's actually speaking this is from Saudi Arabia, this is here he is talking to the people of Saudi Arabia. Do not dictate your difference to other countries that are in need of the knowledge and iman of the least knowledgeable and least righteous of us. Okay? That are in need of the knowledge and iman of the least knowledgeable and least righteous of us. So, other words, don't make Saudi Arabia, if it's already taken as a standard to lead people, don't dictate its opinions on other countries.
Don't dictate opinions on other countries.
How much more so a scholar, this is a scholar here, right? Now, whether he's talking specifically about the hukama, the government of Saudi Arabia, or the ulama of Saudi Arabia, or the people in general, how much more so here in the West, over and over, we are forced to follow people, to follow the trends of other countries. For example, individuals follow more customs of other countries, or statements of other scholars.
They do.
Like, you have to follow this statement. No, we have to follow the statement of Allah and His Messenger. And if the scholar that happened to set it, then we're not in actuality following the scholar. We're following the evidence that the scholar brought.
If his statement coincides with the evidence.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't, we leave his statement off.
Then we leave his statement off. And I mean, this is something this is a fundamental principle. Understood. Nobody's statement is to be what? Accepted or rejected except who?
Because those countries, like the Western countries, he said they're in need of the iman and the knowledge of the least knowledgeable and the least righteous of us. They need that. But instead, we done busied our people.
Right.
We done busied our people with refutations. We done busied our people with attacking one another. We done busied our people with things that just don't concern them. We haven't busied them with the basic fundamentals of shurutu salah. What are the conditions needed to be there before you pray? How do you make wudu? What are the conditions there to make wudu? What breaks your wudu? We haven't really got that down pat just yet. But we busy them with affairs that are way over their heads.
No.
So the Sheikh, he continues and he says, excuse me.
The people of the Sunnah.
The people of the Sunnah in the countries of the Caucasus, which is the former Soviet Union, like Dagestan and Chechnya and those places like that, are fighting each other due to what is being dictated to them. Warn against so and so. Do not listen to so and so. And yet, by Allah, they do not know the basic principles of the Sharia nor the principles of the path.
And this is exactly what he was just talking about. The basic principles of wudu. Here it is, you see in the West, many people who don the cloak of Salafiyyah or the title of Salafiyyah, the description of Salafiyyah, aren't working together. And don't give me this made-up fantasy. They are working together. No, they're not. They aren't working together. They aren't progressing. They actually are regressing. Don't give me, we built a new building. You see the brothers have conference every year. No, that's not enough. It's not enough. And in reality, you see that those individuals who they pointing their fingers at and speaking about all of the times, you see most of them are progressing in schools and their academic systems. They are progressing. They are progressing even in the fact of their jobs. If you go inside of most of the communities, you go inside that ascribe themselves to Salafiyyah, and let's just be realistic. You see a lot of them the masses are filled with what? Ex-convicts, unemployed people. People don't have what?
People on welfare.
Good jobs, people on welfare. You see, majority of that time. Where's we have very little professionals that occupy different positions.
And most of our communities are very sinful with open sins.
And all of this stuff. And you ask yourself, okay, at the end of the day, but our Aqidah is strong. We're upon the correct dawah. We ascribe to Salafiyyah. Everybody gets off it. La.
Does the correct dawah, the correct Aqidah produce this chaos?
La, because if you look at the companions with Allah Ta'ala alayhim, their deen and their Aqidah actually made them better people. And that was in business, that was in social, that was in economics, that was in all over. They was better people.
Yeah, they were better people.
You know, it was asked to one of the Salaf was asked about the issue of dealing with taqwa, the fears of the heart. So he said, raqa'iq. He said, how do I get my heart soft? He said, I want to know, how do I soften my heart? He said, read the books of buying and selling.
SubhanAllah.
He directed him to read the books of buying and selling. This will be a way of what? Of raqa'iq, softening the heart. Why is he telling him to read books about buying and selling to deal with the affairs of the heart? Because when buying and selling, you have to know what? You have to be fair. You have to have taqwa. You got to fear Allah. You have the iman. You have to be fair when dealing in trade. Yep. All of this stuff goes in it. It
softens the heart.
So see how even in economics they understood that, how this actually play a role.
I mean, for example, he says warn against so-and-so being dictated. And we found this with some of our interviews where scholars have said, go warn against so-and-so, we'll warn against you. You have to warn against this scholar, even though the scholar's not known in our land, our people don't speak Arabic, but you're telling us to go warn against a person in our land that don't have any effect on our land, instead of going back and dealing with the real issues in our land, which is that our people are not understanding basic Islam, they don't understand the base of the Sharia, they don't understand the base of Iman, they don't understand the base of the Salat, they don't understand the base of the Wudu, and this is why we continue to produce open centers and chaos, because the foundation is not strong, so it wavers and it shakes. But as long as I'm warned against so-and-so, as long as I'm praying inside this particular place, as long as I'm saying these particular names, doesn't matter how much I sin, doesn't matter how much chaos I cause, I'm fine. That is a chaotic understanding of Islam, and that is not what the Sheikh is saying here. He's saying that don't dictate this to people. Teach people the base of the Sharia.
The principles of Sharia.
The principles of Sharia. Teach them this.
No. In some European countries, by Allah, they fought each other with weapons due to you are with Sheikh Fulan and I am with Sheikh Fulan. You see this? And when the Prophet ﷺ actually saw this take place with the Ansars and the Muhajirin, well, one was stood up when he was arguing, one stood up and said, yeah, Ansars, one said, yeah, Muhajirin. The Prophet ﷺ said, you call into what? What did he say to this act that they were doing? He called it the act of Jahiliyyah. If you call into the days of ignorance, pre-Islamic, right? Yep. Days of ignorance. Are you calling to that? Why I'm amongst you? Why I'm still amongst you? Why are you calling to this? And this is something that we see, even in this actual hadith, the Prophet mentioned about asabi and stuff like that, as you mentioned before, about nationalism, tribalism, and so forth and so on. But still, we have to understand we cannot be doing that. I'm with Sheikh so-and-so, and that's exactly what's going on right now.
If you're not, I'm with Sheikh Bukhari, I'm with Sheikh Rabi, I'm with Sheikh Muhammad Hadi, I'm with this, I'm with that. And they rate the scholars of Medina and this and that. And they use this on you to degrade you and to belittle you. And then the other side, and another group of people say, oh, we got Sheikh Fulan said this, or Sheikh Fulan said that, Sheikh Fulan. But so while everybody's arguing, 5 years ago by, everybody keeps saying Sheikh Fulan, Sheikh Fulan. 5 years ago by, still no school. Still no establishment of academics. Still the wealth is not being built. Still the academics is not being built. Still no social reform.
A Salafi Muslim takes another Salafi Muslim to a disbelieving government in order for him to be arrested and test him in his deen, because he has opposed him in his exalting of his sheikh and praising his minhaj. Can you believe this? This is actually what we see. In fact, reverts to Islam leave their deen in totality. When he enters into Islam, he desires iman. He desires comfort, tranquility, serenity in his heart. But the reality is that by the morning he is argumentative, and by the evening he is misguided. Oh, subhanAllah.
That's what we see.
That's exactly what we see. We see an individual who don't know the shurut of salat. He don't know the shurut of la ilaha illallah. I'm talking about bil-itqan. He don't know it with complete conviction. But he would tell you, stay away from so-and-so. He would tell you about all of the errors of Shadid Muhammad. I mean the major ones. He knows Shadid Muhammad's name. He knows you need to stay away from Shadid Muhammad. You need to stay away from this, and that. But he cannot tell you La ilaha illallah, its pillars, its conditions, its requirements, those things that invalidate it. He can't tell you that. Why? Because he haven't been spending his time learning that. He's been so much more caught up in what? I'm defending this, I'm learning this. And this is what Salafiyyah has translated to him.
Well, what it is now is that the people's whole religion is two things: allegiance to a personality and dissociation from a personality.
Exactly.
That's people's whole Islam right now. That's people's whole Islam.
And coupled with the fact that they're worshiping Allah Jalla wa Ala based off fatwa. What did the sheikh say? All right, this is how we're going to do it. And they don't really actually carry out the fatwa that the sheikh issue, but they just see it in a roundabout way. This is how our religion is practiced. And then the book of Allah is being neglected, and the sunnah is being neglected. And then the people who we call the people of innovation, they are the ones who are more well-versed in the book of Allah. How many of us challenge ourselves on a daily basis? There is a sister who always posts every day she's been posting, may Allah Jalla with water, 10 pages, read 10 pages a day. Every day she just say, read 10 pages a day. Read 10 pages a day. A beautiful reminder
it is.
Of the Quran. How often do we read the Quran? How often do we challenge ourselves and say, you know, we're going to finish a juz. We're going to finish half a juz of the Quran. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. But we can actually tell you who to take from, who not to take from. This is serious. And this is what the Sheikh is saying here. He said, those people in foreign countries are ghuraba. They are isolated and alone. Very few in countries which do not rule by the Sharia of Allah. Think about that. We live in a predominantly Darul Kufr. We live in a land that is ran and governed by non-believers. We don't have the mercy of the Sharia here. We don't have the mercy of overabundance flow of scholars.
Yeah.
Or even of Muslims.
Muslim government.
So that makes us what? Ghuraba. That makes us few and isolated.
Yeah.
So don't you think in this environment we should be what?
Working together?
Cringing together, right?
Yeah, but we find the opposite though.
And how can you fault an individual who cannot say now, it seemed like something sinister is keeping us away from working together? You can't fault someone having that conclusion.
Yeah.
You can't fault someone to say, okay, why aren't we working together? We got the kitab, we got the sunnah, we got the telelinks with the scholars, we got the translations, we got this, and that. Why we aren't working
together? And it's
together?
only one group of people for the last 20 years who've been keeping everybody from working together.
SubhanAllah. He also mentioned here, he said that not believing in paradise nor hell. Despite this, from the lands of Tawheed and Sunnah, there are issues with meager, lowly disputes which are then magnified by stupid, foolish individuals due to ignorance, desires, and despise his biyah, to the extent that the Muslims in those countries begin to boycott each other and their unity is weakened.
There you go.
There you go.
Look at the sheikh. It's like he's sitting right in Philadelphia.
Not just in Philly. I'm just in the West.
Yeah, he's sitting in the West.
In the Western countries, because this is in Britain. This is all over.
Australia.
This ain't just in Canada.
New Zealand.
Yeah, this ain't just here in Philly. This is all over the West. It's chaotic. That's what this is. It's chaotic.
Because what they do is, look how they bring disputes from the Arab lands or the Middle East or the Muslim countries overseas, and they bring them to us. Then they magnify them to us. And then they say whoever agrees with us on this dispute or doesn't, this is how we based our allegiance on who agrees and disagrees. Then they create a hizb, like the sheikh said here, a despise hizbiyah, based upon who now goes along with this dispute and who doesn't. That's what they do. This is what we see happening. So it's now they can remove your Salafiyyah from you based upon your position on a dispute that had nothing to do with us in the first place.
Whenever have you ever heard of someone, an imam of a masjid, coming to one of the congregants or coming to one of the people that's the commoners and saying, you don't believe that Sheikh Rabi is the flag bearer of Jahwa Ta'dil?
That's amazing.
I mean, no other conversation, no nothing. It just come up to you and say, you don't believe that Sheikh Rabi is the flag bearer of Jahwa Ta'dil. The Sheikh who himself disliked the title, who hate the title, don't want to be called that. But yet and still, somebody can walk up to you. This is exactly what the Sheikh is saying.
Yeah.
And we are being challenged. Don't go to that masjid because they agree with so-and-so. Personalities again. Not because, do they call to the Quran? Do they call to the Sunnah? No. Don't go to that masjid because they don't take the opinion of so-and-so.
That's what all it is. And then they boycott you, and then our unity is broken. And it's broken based upon a dispute that had nothing to do with us in the first place, or a scholar that they push up in front of them who has no power or authority in our land to give fatwa in our land or to make a ruling in our land that we have to obey.
No, that we have to obey. No. It's a musibah, man. It's definitely a musibah. MashaAllah.
Have mercy upon Salafiyyah. By Allah, most of your opponents today do not criticize Kitab al-Tawheed, Your opponents are too worthless to criticize such strong mountains. However, your own actions and statements have caused people to flee away, as well as the fact that you have left the way of the well-grounded scholars. Look at that. If you look at what's happening, it's not that the people are saying, like I had a conversation today. A couple older brothers who've been around for 30, 40 years, go to the different, like Philadelphia Masjid, these different masjids around the city. They said it's not Salafiyyah that we have a problem with. It's the attitude, the behavior, and the implementation that we see as harsh that we got a problem with.
And this is exactly what the Sheikh is saying. They don't got a problem with it. Most people don't got a problem with you teaching the book Kitab al-Tawheed.
No, and actually we were asked to go teach whatever books we want at these masjids.
They don't got no problem with Aqidah Wasatiyah.
They don't.
They don't got no problem with these books. The problem they got, again, is with the actions and behavior of other individuals.
Exactly. And this is what we see happen, because they have left the way of the well-grounded scholars. And listen, like again, me and this brother, we don't take shots at scholars, but we're going to keep it real. The reality, most of the people they put in front of us right now, most of them are not from the Kibar Ulama. They're not from the senior scholars. They're not from the scholars that like Sheikh Fawzan, Sheikh Louis Haydan, Sheikh Hudiyan Rahimahullah, and other than them Sheikh Muqsin Al-Abad, and other than him from the Kibar Ulama. And a lot of these scholars can't even give rulings of fatwa in their own countries that these guys have them in. They get famous because of us.
Allah.
What they do is they're basically a gateway to the West through these particular group of brothers like Salafi Pub, Hasamali, and things like that. But without those connections, these scholars in their own lands don't even have masjids.
And this is why you got to really think about it. How easy throughout the years have we seen the same individuals who push one name of a scholar in front of us we don't know nothing about. He pushed him in front of us. He becomes so to a mountain. Yeah, he's the alim, he's the jebel, he's so forth, he's so on. And then you see a couple of years later, for whatever reason, that same scholar you no longer take from.
No.
He's warned against. This only can happen because when people are like here, as the brother Isa is saying,
yeah,
when people are allowing other scholars who don't have no authority in their own land to somehow gain authority here. No, we respect the ulama, but we also have to respect what's the authority, the proper way things go.
Exactly.
We don't have a dar iftah here, as far as Muslim scholars are concerned. We don't have that. And this is why when you hear the likes of Sheikh Tahir telling you that we need to get together collectively with the group of individuals who have some type of academic behind them, and they have some academic scholarship, because some people don't even know the difference between academic scholarship, which is considered scholarship when you get a PhD, which is an academic scholarship, right? So when you have these individuals who have that, and they can actually, do research and actually look and see what's challenging us, what's facing us today in our society that is fit to our society and our people and our challenges that we have. You don't have that.
Nope.
And so when you're not working like that, like Sheikh Tahir is saying, and you think that he's a mumayyir, just think about it. Sheikh Tahir had been warned against longer than anybody I know, right? From amongst the Americans and the Westerners. And we have yet to find anything solid. We don't have no statements from him. We don't have this. We don't have that. Anything solid, right? So much so that you had Sheikh Salih Suhaimi defend him. And he actually called Abu Khadija a liar on the grounds of this. And he called him oppressive. Because he was oppressing the brother because he hadn't brought one shred of evidence. And I'm not calling to Sheikh Tahir. I just want that to be known. I'm just trying to make a point here. Why we see that? The person who have about over 2 decades of studying and knowledge, and the scholars love him, and he can actually benefit us all, right? We all can take pride in that. Someone coming back who can benefit us and actually collect the team together that can actually deal with our issues. You don't find that amazing? He's the most targeted, but yet he's the most beneficial.
Well, because one of the things is that you have to get rid of 2 types of people. You have to get rid of the Kibar Ulama. You have to separate us from them, which they have done. They only tie us into 4 scholars. And another thing they've done, they removed our elders in age from us. So you find them degrading Tawfiq Abu Zaynab. You see them degrading Dawood Adib. You see all of these types of things happen and stuff like that, but they have separated us from our elders and things like that. And I'm not saying you got to agree with everything these elders have done. Obviously, you can have your position on them. You don't have to like them. But I'm saying what these guys have done in Salafi publications and at Germantown Masjid is by degrading and belittling, attacking the honor of these brothers and removing them from the face of the youth and then putting themselves up and they call it ustad and calling them elders when a lot of these guys haven't even got out of being 30-something years old yet. It's very strange, and we have to look at that and take a real look at that and be beware of that. That's weird.
I knew it was a problem whenever, you know, I would go and I would speak to Somali, Hassan ibn Eric. I would speak to Hassan ibn Eric. I would speak to Abu Hassan Malik. And I would speak to them on different occasions and private occasions, encounters. And every time I offered them, to come down and aid and to benefit and, to advise, to instruct, it was like always was not like they wouldn't work with you. No. But then I seen them working with other individuals. There's nothing wrong with that. That may not have, certain things, but they only working with them because they're in a total 100% agreement with them. You can't disagree with them. Like, you can't say, okay, all right, I don't take that position. Well, we still can work together. I don't take that position, and this is my proof, my evidence why, but we still can work together. And when I realized that that wasn't the case, I had to start seeing what's behind the bigger picture. And that's what was happening throughout the years that we're seeing, and throughout these months, we're seeing that there's more brothers and sisters behind the scenes than you know. There's definitely more. There's a lot. These brothers don't want to work with us, and they do not want the communities to progress. And I honestly believe they don't. Whether they outwardly saying this, whether you say, okay, yeah, but they teach this, they teach that. They are not focusing on the progression of any community. You look at every community that they were in. And I'm not just talking about Germantown. I'm just talking about anyone with that type of mentality.
It hasn't progressed.
Show me where the progression at.
I'll tell you why. If you turn the light on, what happens to the roaches?
They scatter.
So if you teach people and their light bulbs come on, they start seeing everyone for who they are.
Exactly.
And the whole situation. So you got to keep a veil of darkness in front of people and keep them arguing and confused and smoky, so they never figure out the bigger picture of the whole thing. That's what it's about.
He said, our Sheikh bin Baz, Rahimahullah, lived 70 years. And since 1350, which is 1925, the Gregorian calendar, he has been teaching and spreading the Salafi dawah and defending it. By Allah, they did not find anything about him that we would shy away. We did not find anything about him that we would shy away from, and we are not able to defend. So his opponents return back abject and sorrowful. This is how the truthful follower should be. The sincere Salafis. Their standing is for the sake of Allah. Their statements are in obedience to Allah, and their actions are upon the Sunnah. They show mercy to the people, and they clarify the truth with evidence and reasoning. Have mercy upon Salafiyyah. Beware of suspicion. Suspicion is the worst type of speech. Upon you is what is apparent, and rarefied information brought to you. Weigh everything you upon the scales of knowledge and justice, and act according with determination and mercy. Do not make Salafiyyah the house of a particular sheikh. Do not make Salafiyyah a house of a particular sheikh. Whoever enters into this house is Salafi.
Subhanallah.
Is
that not it? If I don't take the position, I'm going to say it again, because I'm not scared. If I don't agree with Sheikh Rabi 100%, or Sheikh Obaid, or Sheikh Muhammad Hadi, or Sheikh Abdullah Bukhari, then I'm not Salafi. The Sheikh is saying, how do you make Salafi of 4 scholars? And if I don't agree with them on anything, now I'm not Salafi. Listen, people, let me say this to you. By Allah, those brothers cannot remove Salafiyyah from you, and they cannot give it to you. So do not be afraid of that. Those scholars that they put in front of us cannot give you Salafiyyah, and they can't take it from you. If you don't agree with them and you don't adhere to their way, and they say you're not Salafi anymore, so what?
Understand this, though. We still respect the scholars, and the scholars are only going to teach off based on the information that they have with them. And what we mean is that, yes, the scholars can teach you about Salafiyyah, but do they possess the right to say, now you in it and you out it, you on it and you off it? No, that's not their right. And again, like we said, that's the right of Allah and His Messenger. As Ibn Qayyim mentioned about the fear of tabdir, tafsiq, and takfir, he said that these fears, they are the haqq of Allah and the haqq of His Messenger. However, don't forget though, we adhere to the Quran and the Sunnah, and we listen to the advice of the scholars based upon the evidence that they stick to. So there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, we don't want to open up the door to say, okay, I just don't agree with this scholar today, so I don't know why. I'm not disagreeing with him based on evidence.
You gotta disagree based on evidence.
Yeah, I'm not, I just don't want to agree with him, and I want to open that door.
Or have a scholar that you agree with that has another position that you think is clearer or more truthful or more have more evidence for in that particular position. And another thing before we go on, if like he said, with evidence and reasoning, right? Meaning you got to have evidence, and the way you're teaching has to be reasonable. Like the brother did a clip on the tawhid that's practical and the tawhid that's theoretical. Theoretical tawhid. If it's not the problem of the books the brothers are teaching. It's practical versus theoretical. Because if it was practical and if it was true progress, we will see a spiritual progress in the community. Not some superficial progress to how black our hijab is or how white his thobe is. We're talking about a spiritual revolution, a spiritual movement that people are now being raised up spiritually. We don't see that happening. It's not the books. It's the way that it's being taught and the way that it's being applied and given to the people. The people can't chew it.
No, they can't.
They can't chew it.
What he's saying, that's what we've been talking about in the remedies of when we was going over those remedies dealing with the hearts. The heart is what leads the body. And if the heart is sound, then the rest of the body, the limbs, going to be sound. And that's how it should be. Those matters of the heart should be what? Rectified.
Exactly.
That should be the spiritual, the revolution there. And that's what's going to govern us to be better. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith on brotherhood, after mentioning things that you shouldn't do, that destroy brotherhood, and mentioning things that will what? Bring about love, he said, Ataqwa ha huna.
No.
And he did it, he pointed 3 times. He said, Ataqwa ha huna. And where did he point it? He pointed to his chest. And he was talking about his heart. The heart is going to be that affair that's going to govern what is right and what is wrong. And this is something that we definitely have to work on. Wallahi. And that means if you're in front of the people, teaching the people, you're going to need to work in your heart more than the people that's listening to you. And that's something that we don't have. We don't have a lot of role models. And
you got to be able to have something to give it.
We don't have a lot of role models, and I think that's destroying us.
Yep.
And that's destroying us big time because, during the time of the companions with one Allah Ta'ala alayhim, they had the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that they can look to as an example.
Yep.
Example model. And then, the Tabi'een, they had the companions. And then, the Tabi'een, the Atba Tabi'een had the Tabi'een. You see how it went down. They had other people that were leaders, role models, that show them how to do stuff. We are just like in a free fall state.
Yeah, we are.
And we have young, inexperienced youth in front of us who's all emotion and really not strong in deen. And the ones that we do have that have the academic prowess, and not saying that they're going to have everything right, but they have the academic prowess and they took the necessary steps and went down the necessary path to learn that knowledge, to come back and, to benefit their communities.
Nah.
We can take from them.
And we see their progress. We see them opening up academic centers like Imam Muslim Center. We see progress. And we see things happening. And we see they have the academic prowess to keep feeding this progress. So the Sheikh, he says, Salafiyyah is the religion of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It is the methodology of the companions, the tabi'een, and the imams of the religion. Nobody's expelled from Salafiyyah except with evidence and certainty, and not due to desires, personal interests, and the shaitan.
That's exactly what he was just saying. So there you have it. It's the Prophet ﷺ methodology. That's it.
Yeah.
Germantown can't come to another masjid and say the masjid is off it. Okay. Ain't a dalil.
Ain't a dalil.
Where's your evidence? Germantown can't say so-and-so is off it. Okay. Ain't a dalil. Where's your evidence? I don't want a statement that you misconstrued. I don't want a conflict that you misconstrued. Oh, he went against this. Or he said this.
I mean, we get it so crazy. Like the statement of, what's the statement? We can't wait for Allah to fix it. We have to fix it ourselves because we did this. And then you try to twist this statement, even though Allah said Allah won't change the condition of people until they change it themselves. We all know this statement in English that, oh, you know what? We can't just sit around and think that Allah will give me a job. I got to go out and fill applications out.
Yeah,
that's a true statement.
The concept, I'm gonna pray for a loaf of bread, but I ain't gonna work. I'm not
gonna work to buy the loaf of bread.
I'm not gonna work, to get the.
Don't try to twist the brother's statement and say it's an Aqidah issue. It's true. We have to start fixing the problem, and Allah will aid us in the process. SubhanAllah. And this is the thing. Then you say somebody's deviant because of the statement, and then people run with it. Then everybody who runs with these type of statements, whether it's about Shadid, whether it's about Ali Davis, whether it's about Sheikh Tahir, whether it's about us or anybody, Yawmul Qiyamah, for all you people that listened and then spread it on Twitter and all these social medias. When the sarat, which is thin as a piece of hair, what you going to do on that day? You have to answer for those statements that you spread.
So the Sheikh, he said, and we're wrapping it up, the Sheikh said, have mercy upon Salafiyyah. Our Salaf, even though they spoke about the people of innovation and boycotted them, however, they were the imams of fiqh, true understanding, imams of sunnah, imams of zuhd, Imams of piety, imams in good manners, imams in calling to goodness and forbidding evil, imams in jihad in the way of Allah, imams in every good characteristic. So be true Salafis like them. Do not restrict Salafiyyah to one area and not the other. Do not sway to one side and disregard the other side. And this is just reality, man. You know, you gotta practice what you preach. You gotta, there's just reality. You just can't say I'm going to be like the Salaf, in description, and I'm only going to warn against and boycott. But when it comes to having good manners and all this other stuff, you don't do that. Like, come on, it doesn't work that way. So we got to be real true to ourselves. The Sheikh is saying they were imams, they were a'imma, and fiqh, understanding, and jihad. Just stop for a minute. Yes, we are not in agreement with spreading the believer's sins, because Allah Jalla wa'ala tells us about it in Surah An-Nur, and those first 12 ayats, or first 10 ayats dealing with the ifk of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. Allah mentioned about those who love to spread the sins or the fahisha of the believers. So we know that. But just think for 1 second. Allah Jalla wa'ala tell Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, have you been harsh-hearted? They would have broken the bow, right? Where I'm going at with this. If you got people in front of you, leaders in front of you, that are falling into stuff that's definitely major, or it's circulating around them for years. If someone is saying someone is getting on for the last 10 years, believe it or not, that person is getting on. There are some evidence indicators that the person is on. And I'm not saying you still should spread that, but I'm saying at the very least, we know in our deen, a person who was a fasiq is not the one who should be leading the salat, giving the khutbahs, doing these lofty stations or these lofty duties. He should not be the one in the forefront, right?
We're talking about 20 years of accusation. We're not talking about one accusation about a particular person at a particular situation came up. We're talking about 20 years of the same accusations year after year after year. Even if I can't prove it, I'm not slow neither.
And it's not about even proving. It's just the fact. We need role models.
Yeah, we don't have them.
So how much more so when you got brothers graduating coming out of schools, and they don't have that surrounding them. Yep. They've been with their wives for 15 or 10 years, and they had their children, and their children are hafiz of Quran or memorizing half of the Quran, and they're in school and stuff like that. Why wouldn't you want these individuals who have less of the problems to be the ones that's dealing with the knowledge of fears?
They don't have black clouds over their head.
They don't got black clouds over their fear. Why would we want to have people who that don't make sense? And then you find people, this is how it works. You find people, like minds work together. So they automatically, people that's in that type of crowd, gangsters and so forth and so on, you always find them surrounding these brothers. So yeah, these are the students. And they're always around that crowd. So what happens? The student hang with, how can you command the good, forbid the evil, if you're hanging around bad companionship? Everyone knows what the person does. You're still with them.
How do you
attract
jumping out
gangsters? Of cars,
how do you attract
jumping
gangsters?
This in and out. That type of stuff. What does it do? Come on, at the very least, you don't do that.
No.
You definitely don't do that.
No, we don't.
And when are we going to start demanding better? We don't even demand better when it comes to that type of stuff. We just he's our imam. That's that's Hassan. He's our imam. He's sharp, but he's hanging with so and so. You're from the community. You know so and so. Everyone knows so and so, but he's still hanging with so and so. Come on.
Still hanging with, driving around with him all night. And stuff like that. And he's sitting in front of him. There's no way he's not sitting in front of him.
Or even at the very least, it's still bad companionship.
Exactly.
And also, you can be inspired, right? For example, he dressed nice. So then you see the students, nothing wrong. The student want to dress nice. He always, the girls is always on him. So you see the student next to you.
But we don't see that. We don't see these particular body of brothers change in the community. We see them going in with the community into the sin and being known for the same sins. We don't see them being the role models, uplifting the community. And the community is now becoming more righteous because of them.
And that's happening. And the reality, brothers and sisters, read those two ayats. It comes twice in the Quran. One is Surah Anfal and one is Surah Ra'd. Surah Anfal is Surah 8 and one is in Surah Ra'd. Surah 13, Allah said, Allah would not change the condition of the people until they can change the condition of themselves. You want change, it starts with you. If you want change, it starts with you. Stop feeding them. Stop feeding them. We're not saying, but the brothers are doing this. Stop feeding them. You want better, then, produce better within yourself so that you can do better for your community, inshallah ta'ala. Exactly, and the brother brought a nice point. That's why Isa and Dawood cursed their people because they would sit with those in the haram. And Allah Jalla wa Ala mentioned that in Surah Ma'idah. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Lu'ina, meaning Bani Israel, they were cursed ala lisan. Dawood wa Isa ibn Maryam. They were cursed upon the tongue of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam. Why? Because they would sit around individuals who would do munkar, and he would not prohibit them from doing that munkar. And this is important. That's why commanding the good and forbidding the evil is one of the first things that brings about brotherhood and established brotherhood.
I don't even see something you may think simple. You may see a brother hitting a nudie, a stogie. You should say something.
Yeah.
You should say something.
Allah protect us at me.
I mean, say something. At the very least, Aki, that's haram, Sheikh. You
always use hikmah.
Always use hikmah.
We're in a time right now where there are a lot of people got a lot of different, their minds at different states. Their hearts at different states. They're depressed. There are multiple things that might be going on.
Yeah.
You might find yourself out there rumbling with somebody. You know, you come down.
Well, at the very least, you can't advise at that point. Still befriend them at the very least and bring them in the fold and try to correct them like that.
Exactly.
At the very, don't leave them like that though. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Don't leave the people like that.
And don't have the holy than thou syndrome neither. Whereas though, I just can't believe a stuck for the law they would do this, and you would never try to reach out to do something good. Nah.
We all been there.
Yeah. Tayyib, last but not least, we ended with this. The Sheikh said, he mentioned that to be true Salafis, do not sway from one side and disregard the other side. He said, read the biographies of the Imams of Jarh wa Ta'dil. Let's stop there. He didn't say read the subject of Jarh wa Ta'dil. He said, go back and read the biographies of the Imams, the A'imma of Jarh wa Ta'dil. I want you to notice something. And I know right now a lot of us don't know Arabic, so we can't read their works. You find people who are so busy in translating other works, but they don't want to translate the biographies of these individuals. You know what I mean? To tell how good and wholesome and see the things that they had.
Why are you going to put the spider on yourself? You're not going to put the spider on yourself.
Yeah.
The roses don't want the light on, Sheikh. Yeah. Keep trying to tell you that.
But I'm just saying, in reality, this is why it's important that we have to learn Arabic, so we can go back and read their biographies. You think Shu'bah was like so-and-so? Huh? You think Bilal Davis right now is on the level of Shu'bah? It's not even the same. You know what I mean? It's one thing to hate bid'ah, and there's another to transgress against the person who's committing bid'ah. You know, make sure that you hating bid'ah for the sake that you're hating for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
Not a power move.
And not a power move. Not a move to make yourself get bigger. Or, see, and this is what you hear from the brothers. Tell me, when did you ever warn against Ahlul Bid'ah?
Teaching Sunnah is warning against bid'ah.
All day, every day. All day, every day. Teaching Tawheed is warning against what?
Shirk.
All day, every day. So, I mean, just because he's not walking around with a badge or he's not walking around with a group of people, we in defense of the Sunnah, we in defense, like, you don't got to say
everybody, listen, if that's what you're doing, then do that. But this brother want to deal with the social ills. Let him deal with the social ills of his people. These people want to deal with wudu and teaching the salat and teaching the different ibadat. Let them do that. Everybody don't have to do the same thing. No. You want to walk around with the bid'ah badge and the bam bam stick on your shoulder, then that's fine, akhi.
Look what he said. He said, like Shu'bah, like Sufyan, Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, Yahya ibn Sa'id, Yahya ibn Mu'in, Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Ishaq, Rahaway, and others. Consider their honor and glory. Think about their knowledge and righteous actions. Stop at the limits of fiqh and wisdom, and fill yourself with zuhd and piety. This is how you will be real and true Salafis. Look at this point here. I remember Abu Uwais, rahimahullah, he mentioned in one of his talks, he was saying, all of these lofty names that you keep mentioning, like, it's one of my favorite sayings by him. Like you mentioned Sufyan ibn Thawri, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Sa'd, Layth ibn Sa'd. All of these names, he said if they was to see you right now, they would put their throats in their mouth and get to running. I remember Abu Uwais mentioned this. He said if they would see you right now, they would put their throats in their mouth and get to running.
Yeah.
They'll run away from you. They will free themselves away from you. Why? Because of our characters. This is very important, brothers and sisters, that we have to begin when we're starting to want to imitate other individuals. Let's start about reading their biographies and reading about their character and their piety and their taqwa to Allah. Not about the deeds and not about the stances that they take. Everybody's amazed. I want to be like Ahmed ibn Hanbal because he took this stance and he took that stance. But Ahmed ibn Hanbal was fearing Allah Azza wa Jalla, which allowed him to take that stance.
Exactly.
Ahmed ibn Hanbal had knowledge. He had this, he had that. Because what? It allowed him.
Why did Allah choose him with the fitna of the Quran?
Exactly. And this is why you see the likes of Sheikh Fawzan or the likes of Sheikh Uthaymeen, who told the young boy that was praising him. The likes of Sheikh Al-Albani, who cried when one person praised him. This is why you see the likes of these scholars acting like that, because they like, we haven't even tested Mark.
And you notice this. Those big time scholars, Sheikh Fawzan, Sheikh Luhid, they're like, and there's the Mufti. You don't see them involved in none of this foolishness.
No, you don't. But look how they act. They were saying about Sheikh Fawzan. He said I'm only a small student of knowledge. And he said they said your books is widespread. People are benefiting. He said we hope, inshallah ta'ala. Why? Because at the end of the day, what Sheikh Badr is saying right here, when you read their biographies, you're going to start seeing yourself like an ant compared to what they have done.
SubhanAllah.
And when you got that type of mentality, you're not going to be walking around doing this. You ain't going to be fixing your face up doing this. Bending your nose at this person. Putting this person on and that person off it. You won't get caught up into that. Why? Because you be worrying about your own self and your own limitations, and you'll know that. This is the problem that we don't do. We don't do self-reflection. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that the believer, a mu'min, the believer to another believer is a mirror to mu'min. The believer is a mirror to another believer, inshallah ta'ala. And that's what we want to stop with by the permission of Allah tonight, inshallah, the night shift. Next time we pick back up, inshallah ta'ala, we'll go back into the Ibn Rajab, dealing with the affairs of the hearts, bi'ithnillah. Jazakallah khairan. Whatever we said that was incorrect from the shaitan and ourselves, what we said is correct from Allah, Jalla wa ala.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.